Hello everyone, Luke here. Now before I get into talking about this week's chapter, I just want to say thanks for Party Jams from last week for pointing this out to me that I've forgotten in last week's chapter to mention this part right here with Stanley's like with him using his gun as a lighter, and I'm like thinking like, yeah, that is pretty wild. Although I reckon it's both a lighter and a gun, or it could just be like one of those flame guns that you have that he's just using to just light up. Either way, yeah, that is pretty funny, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I glossed over that from last week. But now that I've got that out of the way, let's move into this chapter because oh boy, there is a lot to talk about. Alright, so this will be Dr. Stone chapter 171 titled Staring at the Same Light. And yes, I got that right because last week I said Promised Neverland instead of Dr. Stone. I even referenced it in the video itself, like calling myself an idiot for doing that. But anyway, the title I'm guessing it's like, okay, it's simulating that Senku and Sino are kind of like on the same page and like staring at the same light, which is like the petrification light, the petrification beam. So it's like, okay, we're on the same page and we're going to try and figure out what this thing actually was to begin with. So anyway, the chapter starts off quite nicely with Kohaku and Luna just chilling out, having a drink, and I really wish we got some dialogue between these two to kind of figure out what they're saying, because I feel like aside from Kohaku and Suika, like Luna's probably going to be like the third most prominent female character of the series, behind those two. Like Kohaku's obviously the main female lead of the series, and Suika's like the secondary lead of the series. Kind of like with I can't really even mention this. Kind of like with Lucy from Fairy Tail and Wendy from Fairy Tail. Like you've got like the big busty one, and then you've got like the cute little lolly one. But anyway, yeah, I just wanted to bring that on because it's a nice little scene that they've got here with them just chilling out, just talking. As we see the yacht is actually moving away from. Is it the yacht? Yeah, it's the yacht. I wasn't sure if it was like the yacht or Stanley or the Perseus actually moving away. Oh, that reminds me, something else that I've forgotten to bring up as well is if we can go to it. I know, speaking of the Perseus, I feel like you guys are probably going to realise what I'm referring to here. Yeah, this, I can't remember if I actually mentioned this in last week's review, but screw it, I'll mention it again. Chapter 84, the aircraft carrier. Like, if that was not foreshadowing, I don't know what is. I know I've probably mentioned it last week, but I don't care. Mention it again because it's so awesome that I actually was able to pick up on that. But anyway, moving back to the chapter itself, we start off with Kazuki going through the back. Like, if you remember, when I was actually escaping the Perseus, he had a big giant bag of stuff and items, and it's all things that we've actually seen before, like the camera that Miami has, which oh no, is it the camera? No, it's the cell phone. Wait, I'm trying to fit. Is it the? No. You know what? Is it the camera? Oh no, it's just from a different angle. Yeah, so one of the items being the Senku phone, which has the message from Byakuya from when they first found the record that he made out of like the little bottle. He made that record, and we see Sinu was actually listening to the message as he goes, "I see. Those in space at the time naturally evaded the Petra beam, so those astronauts are long gone. The Russians, Connie, Lillian, and Byakuya." Now, obviously, Sino is aware of Byakuya, but there was questions on Twitter of like, how did he actually know the names of how did he know the name of Connie? Now, obviously, Lillian he would know because like she was a famous American singer. But Connie is another one as well, and my guess is that they were colleagues at one point. Like they worked together at some point on something. And I really hope we get a flashback of how Sinu actually came to meet these people, as well as Byakuya. Now, one thing I really want to mention here as well is I know it's a little moment, but it just says a lot about Senku's character. Is is that moment right there where after Xenu says they are long gone and he mentions Byakuya, you see Senku having just like this somber moment, like you can't, he doesn't say anything, but you can tell immediately what he's thinking on his face. It's like, yeah, now that you mention it, I won't be able to see him again. Like he's obviously upset about it, but at the same time, he's not someone. Senku's not really a guy who's very one of those characters who's going to break down and cry in front of other people. But I imagine if he was left alone, he would be something as what happened with Rui when Rui took him to see Byakuya's grave and was left alone. He started crying because he wouldn't get to see Byakuya again, and it is kind of sad that when you think about it, like Senku won't be able to see like his father, even though he's adopted, he's still technically his father, and he won't be able to get to see him again at this point. It's kind of somber but at the same time he's kind of happy that Byakuya left all of this for him to actually discover and give him a new world to explore, basically. So while he is sad, he is thankful that Byakuya actually left him behind all this stuff. Anyway, Xenu goes on to say that man embodied both sentiment and rationality, which is pretty much in line with Byakuya's character. Before going on to say he was a walking paradox, and he did it with a smile. We never did understand one of each other, yet delivering data to the future through a record and oral tales is just the sort of thing he'd do. As we see Byakuya being kind of like the parent, like Senku and Xenu are kind of like just butting heads with, and Byakuya's like, okay boys, settle down, settle down. He's like a father trying to control his shit. Okay, settle down, we are going to talk this through. And I just love moments like that. The chapter continues on as we get a little bit of a flashback of memories of Byakuya declaring that the Petra bees started somewhere in South America, which when we get to the end of this chapter, we kind of have an idea of where it actually is. And I'm going to bring up Caleb Cook's tweets again about where it actually is. Before it goes on to say, that's the problem I'm passing down to you scientists. As Senku gets really excited and says, we ought to be really grateful for that nugget of info, because now we can put our heads together and inch towards the truth step by step. As Xenu gets excited himself, it's like, yes, the two of us should be able to ascertain latitude and longitude. We'll discover the origin of this whole mystery. So fucking hell, this is getting exciting, and just fucking out this game. It's like we're finally figuring out what actually caused the petrification beam in the first place. But now we get to my favourite part of the chapter, where we have everyone else is like, where's Senku and Xenu? And Kuraga's like, they're just downstairs. And they're like, oh, should we just be sipping tea while they're down there? And Ryu's was like, yeah, it would be rude to interrupt them. And it's like, after thousands of years, these top scientists are finally united and ready to fight. Like, Gen's thinking like, oh, there's going to be a science battle between these two, and they're just going to be like arguing all the time. And we see Chrome who's just like, off to the side. This is something I've got to see. Francois, give me some tea. Give me some tea now. I'm gonna take it up to them to see if they want a cup of tea, even though I want to see what's going on. And Kuroko sees through him right away. Sees through Chrome, and she goes, any excuse to get in there and eavesdrops, and she say it while Suika's there, and it's just like, I hope everything's going to be okay, because there's so much science going to go on that it's probably going to go over my head. Now with Suika, I've got a theory about what role she's actually going to play in the arc as well, because there had to be a reason that they brought her along. They brought her along rather than keeping her in Quad City. Well, obviously the main reason is to keep her away from all the big brutes, and be under the protection of Senku and Ryusui. But I reckon there is more to her actually coming on than meets the eye. But anyway, that's for later. And we see just Chrome with his smug look, like thinking like Senku's gonna have a giant blackboard just pointing out things, and Xenu's just gonna be there scribbling, just with his hands tied behind his back, just scribbling with a pen in his mouth, just scribbling everything down. And as he walks up as he walks up to where they've got their station on the yacht, he's like, I wonder what they're doing, and we see them doing that. Yeah, Chrome's face pretty much sums it up. It's like, okay, they're doing something like this. This was the last thing I expected them to be doing, but yeah, that is my favourite part of the chapter. It's like, you have no idea what you've got all these theories going ahead of what kind of science battle they're going to have, and they're just blowing bubbles everywhere. Now, there is a reason for it, but I just find that completely hilarious. Made even more hilarious by Chrome going, bad, those bubbles are huge. Wait, what the heck? Let me join in the fun. Why are you having so much fun? And then we see Xenu saying, this is a playtime, we're working on a model. When you add glucian to the sufferant we made for the shampoo, you get super soap that makes crazy bubbles. And obviously you've got Mecha Senku giving the instructions of how to make super soap bubble solution, which is dish detergent, a good amount. Like, there is no like 12 millimeters or 100 millimeters. It's just a good amount. I just love the sarcastic humor. It's like yeah, you've got a good amount. I'm not figuring out the formula for you. You figured it out. And then there's water half as much as the dish detergent. Again, not giving us any measurements. It's like, you figure it out yourself. And then sugar, a few spoonfuls. Again, not giving us the exact amount, just being so sarcastic here. It's like, yeah, here's the formula. I'm not going to give you the measurements. You figure it out. You figure it out yourself. But anyway, another part as well is like, hold up, Seal's not tied up. He's free. The surprises just keep coming in. It's like, yeah, that was a surprise. You weren't expecting that. So anyway, continuing on, Senku mentions until they're done with all this, he ain't running anywhere, which makes sense, because even if Xenu did have the opportunity to attack, they could always just get Hyoga and Tsukasa to like calm down and be like, just stay where you are, mister. So yeah, there's no point in keeping him tied up, because even if he did, there's still people on the crew that can actually seduce him. So anyway, continue on. Xenu goes, for argument's sake, let's suppose the Medusa activate in Brazil, as we see him blow a bubble on the globe that they've actually bought, and we see the bubble expanding as they go on to say, if the ominous Petra beam can cover a radius of 12,800 kilometers, then on a planetary scale it would envelop the Earth. Which clever idea to use with the bubbles, like just making it feel like, okay, so the petrification beam is like a bubble, it's just expanding. Yeah, and it's just expanding out. Sorry if it blurred a little bit there on my camera, but yeah, the bubble just expanding out, kind of the same thing that they're doing here, as they go on to say, and thus we have the catastrophe that pushed humanity to the brink of extinction thousands of years ago. As Chrome's like, well, I get it, thank you for spanning it out, even though Chrome could have probably figured it out later on. It's always good to have someone who's clear and decisive and just right on the nose here, as Senku goes, here, is this the whole planet, is this the whole model planet really necessary? Guess that the stone shaped your brain power so much that you needed a rest, as Cena's like, what when seeking an elegant result, the first step is to use official aid, which I'm glad that they do that, because a lot of times you kind without official aids, you kind of like just being like, yeah, it's kind of like a big blue sort of thing. Like, bit of a tangent here, but when people come into shops and they're just like, I'd like, let's just use for an example, here we go. They come into a shop and they're like, I'd like Digimon. It's like, okay, which Digimon? It's like, Digimon the series. It's like when people just say stuff like that, like just so vague in the shop, and you're just standing there like looking really confused. It's like, what do you mean? Just give me official aid so that I've got something to work with here, so that I know what you want. I'm sorry, I had to go off on a tangent there, but that's just something that always irks me when they're like coming to a shop that has 1,000 products and they're expecting you to know every single one of these products. Yeah, that's just something I don't get. It's like, I don't live in the shop. I'm just there to sell the stuff. I'm not there for I'm not there for anything else. I'm just there to sell the stuff. To sell the stuff. Maybe I'll know about it. Maybe I won't. It's just a flip of the coin. But if you give me a visual aid, I'll be able to be like, oh yeah, it's that. It's just over there. So yeah, next time, people, bring in visual aids. Anyway, continuing on. Chrome does mention that Xeno did build a castle and all that bad stuff. Unlike Senku, who's obsessed with being practical, Xeno's into the form of things didn't expect that. As he goes on to say that if the model is accurate, then Senku, who's on the other side of the world, would the Petra beam would have basically shot up from the ground. So it would have been kind of like him standing on the floor, and it was just like shooting up, kind of like what happens in Tomb Raider when Lara Croft stands on the hand of Minos, and the gold just like shoots up from her to be one of her many deaths in that game. It's kind of the same same thing here, as Senku goes on to say that in truth it came to him like a giant wave over the horizon. So it's kind of like so again, like like at the beginning, so it's kind of like he was seeing it coming from over the horizon. It's kind of like a shock wave rather than just sort of a ground quake. And with this, they can get a hint as to see where it leads. As Chrome's like, this is just my ingenuity. This is just my intuition talking. But what if the Petra beam moves through the Earth slower than normal? Like if it was a tiny bit slower than explained. As seems like, ooh, an intriguing hypothesis. However, we'd ought to rely on now. What we ought to rely on now is not intuition, but rather objectively and reproducibly. A science pro must view matters objectively and attempt to slow down and attempt to show them that a phenomenon can be reproduced. As he gives Chrome a hypothetical of like, imagine if he had a chance to see ghosts. Why do you suppose that a true science pro would show no interest in such a claim? As Chrome's like, oh, easy, because ghosts do not exist. And Senku in his just sarcastic quips, it's just like it's just like, I'd be 10 billion% excited to research something like that, but only if those ghosts or whatever was somehow causing the same phenomenon over and over again, which would make sense for Senku, because it's kind of like with Death Note when there was a pattern emerging of the deaths. It kind of got everyone intrigued and thinking like, what is this, and who is this? What are they doing, and how are they doing it? Kind of same thing here. If Senku's saying like, oh, if ghosts were causing the same phenomenon again and again and again, I would want to study them and figure out what is actually going on. And Xenu is just like, whether this hypothetical spirit seed is lying or not, it's of no interest to me. But say we observe replica results, for example. Whenever ghosts are around, the temperature drops. In that case, as they go on to say, the temperature differ could power a stirring engine and generate electricity. A spirit dynamo? How truly arrogant! Humanity's energy worries would be no more. As Chrome's like I said, obsessed with being practical. And this is a moment that obviously made me laugh as well, when you just see Suika off to the side, who was probably just exploring the yacht at that point. But you see her just like a sweat drop dripping down her face. Now I don't know why this was put in, but I reckon it was just like she was walking past at the time when she just heard the word ghost. It's like ghosts, and again, like I said. Okay, no. I'll save that for the end, when I'm talking about my theory on who the villain of this arc actually is going to be and how it's going to involve Suika in some way. So anyway, continuing on, they go on to say that enough of that silly junk you would about the whole ghost thing, and that they now need to focus on seeking answers on the replicability of the petrification beam by combining it with what they know. And this is where we get something interesting and find out exactly when they were actually petrified. So Senku was petrified at 12:40 p.m. and Senior was petrified at 8:25 p.m. And I love the fact that they include in those time zones, because a lot of anime and manga tend to forget that yeah, there are different time zone. There are different time zones, so you've got to take that. You got to take that into account, because sometimes they'll probably they seem to forget, like, okay, well, one side of the world has the sun, the other side has the moon and has the night time. So yeah, that was a nice touch that they've actually kept that in there, as they go on to say the petrification beam first hit Sinu's location in Pinnacles National Park, and then 15 minutes and 20 seconds later, the wave reached Tokyo. So Senku concludes that it took under an hour for it to evaporate the whole planet. And another thing that's interesting that they bring up is the space station, and how the crew wasn't floating at some fixed point in space. It was constantly revolving around the Earth, and it would have completed half of a rotation easily in that amount of time. So basically the same amount of time it took to petrify the Earth. And Chrome concludes that if that was the case, if it was like the expanding bubble theory, then the space station would have just slammed right into the wave. As Sinu says, this tells us that the wave of light travelled rather closer to the Earth's surface and wasn't truly light to start with, as light is much faster. Okay, so it seems like this was a scientific experiment, gone completely haywire. Whatever the Y-Man is, I'm sure he's like the ultimate scientist, far surpassing both Sinu and Senku. They also conclude that the petrification beam could have been more like a luminous substance which was dragged down by the Earth's gravity, and to pair that with the empirical observations, they all get bright ideas in the face, as we see on their faces. We see Kawaku going, Chrome was sure taking his sweet time, probably spying on Senku and Sinu's meeting, as she goes up to see exactly what Chrome was actually seeing. That they're all just playing with bubbles, but even more so, that right there, see those butts right in their face. I don't know what was going on there. Like Inagaki said to Boichi, it was probably like, Boichi said, did you make sure Kawaku saw Sinu's butt? Yeah, thank you. That was very important. That was very necessary for this actual chapter. Have no idea, and yeah, Kawaku's face is just full of questions right now, as she just like, yeah, I'm gonna just back down, like this is something out of my league. Anyway, continuing on, Sinu and Senku go on to say, from that moment we spied that light on the horizon until the incident it actually took to hit us. It was 56 seconds. So it was like going at just like insane amount of time from them going like, what is that light in the distance, and then just like it hitting them and petrifying them. Chrome says, as the Petra beam expands outwards, it goes at consistent speed, and they're like, that's right, Chrome, you figured that out, got us one step closer to the replicability. I'm grateful for that, and there's just so much science data going on here that I'm just gonna give the bare basics, as Senku's like, people in airplanes were petrified too, which Sinu confirms that the wave was 20,000 meters tall, and since the atmosphere has a replicant index of 6%, the light was 500 kilometers away from when it was spied on the horizon, and given that it took 56 seconds from them actually spotting it to hitting them, they conclude that it was travelling at 32,000 miles per hour. And since there was a 15-minute and 20-second gap between each of them getting petrified, if they actually get it down to the actual calculations, they're looking at a point on the globe that was exactly 8,181 kilometers further from Sinu than it was from Senku, and you didn't see Chrome was just like, You just see his face there, like, oh my god, just so many numbers here. It's just so so confusing. And he's like, I lost track before you guys started calculating stuff. And yeah, I'm with you there, Chrome. I lost track when they started calculating stuff. Like just everything coming at once here. But yeah, basically, the petrification beam was 8,181 kilometers farther away from Xenu than it was from Senku, basically. That's basically what we're getting at here. Continuing on, Senku says, now we just need angles. A rough estimate is fine. And Xenu's like, indeed, even with ballpark figures, by laying multiple interferences atop one another, the answer we seek will rise up on its own accord. This is a problem that neither of them could solve on its own, as we see them continually working together to figure out what the degrees are, which Xenu concludes that the wave was coming from east-south around 100 degrees as the compass reads, and he first recalls the position of the moon and the stars as well as the table's shadows, and Senku concurs that the first building he saw light up was to the left of Tokyo Skytree by about 7 Skytree widths, so northeast 346 degrees, as the narrator continues on. But by bringing them together, they could triumph, as we see them just give a high five to each other as they go. The two routes they plotted intersected at just one point. It's 3 degrees 7 degrees south latitude by 6 degrees 1 degrees west longitude. The origin of this whole mystery, and that's where the chapter ends. So basically, those coordinates, according to Caleb Cook, who's the official fish translator for Dr. Stone, basically he says on Twitter, those coordinates are in Manaus, Brazil, which is the capital city of Amazonia, Brazil's largest state, almost entirely rainforest, and the city is located where the Rio Negro meets the Solomonius to form the Amazon River, big metropolis, but very isolated. So basically, they're going to where the Amazonias rainforest is, the capital of the Amazonias, and that's where they reckon the petrification beam was first activated. So here's my theory on what's going to be happening next, and I did actually have it on Discord as well, because based on those coordinates and what we got in the chapter, the overall very good chapter. We got a lot of information, and it went a way that I wasn't expecting, but I enjoyed it. Got a lot of comedic moments from all angles. So yeah, really good chapter this week. But anyway, going on to Discord, because I had this big conversation with Party Jams. Shout outs to him again for all the comments he sends me. I do read them all. I love reading his comments and interacting with him. But anyway, going to let's get to Dr. Stone. Yeah, so here's what I think the theory on the main villain of this arc is going to be. It's going to be an environmentalist, basically, an environmentalist who broke out of the stone, and is just like, who basically had the same philosophy as Cena. Like, if we went back into the stone world, what would you do? And he was like, well, I'd get a group of environmentalists, create a tribe, and basically prevent science from the industrial industry from taking over again. So I reckon that's going to be the case. Now we've got an environmentalist who's the main villain, who probably broke out a few years before Senku and Seo has kind of set up this tribe, and it's just like, right, we are a tribe of people who are gonna protect the rainforest. Basically, we're not gonna have any industrial revolutionary or any science take away this beautiful landscape, and it's gonna be like a science versus nature battle. And if that's the case, I'm gonna love that, because we haven't really had that before. We had science versus strongman with Senku versus Tsukasa. Then we had invading tribe with Ibara. Then we had a scientist, an evil scientist with Xenu. So now an evil environmentalist, that could work, and it would fit in tone with the rest of the series. Now, where does Suika come into this? Well, that's my theory. the fact that she is in tune with nature herself and knows a lot about animals. To see someone using what she believes in for evil purposes, that would kind of like get her thinking. It will kind of be a good character development moment for her, like when she's like, I'm an environmentalist and I believe that we believe that the nature and everything's important, but at the same time I believe in Seiko and I believe in his philosophies as well. So it'll be a great character moment for Sarika if that's the case, her being the basically the environmentalist of the Kingdom of Science in a sense. But I also had another theory as well, is that duh, 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 duh. Um, okay, there's three possibilities that I have here. They recently broke out and have created a tribe that don't want science around their territory. They've been around for a while and they've been led to believe that science is evil. So it's kind of like propaganda that they've got in their heads from their ancestors. Like this tribe, like science was evil, science was evil, science is an evil force. You've just got to be in tune with nature, in tune with nature. Or three, they accidentally caused the petrification beam, like the petrification beam at the beginning of the series. Like my theory is that the Y-Man tested with the birds at first to think like, okay, on a small scale I can petrify things. So imagine if I have this petrification beam, I can basically rule the world and basically be seen as a god amongst men, because if people disagree with me, I could just petrify them, and the people in Brazil, where the Amazonia's rainforest is, accidentally set it off, like that, like they just hit something and it just set off the chain reaction. And the Y-Man's just like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? So those are my theories. We've either got a tribe who's recently broken out and doesn't want science ruling them. They've got a tribe who's been around for a while and they've got propaganda going on, or they have a tribe of people who accidentally set off the chain reaction and basically made the Y-Man feel really pissed off about that. But anyway, those are my theories, guys, and really awesome chapter this week. So what did you guys think? Let me know. Like, subscribe, comment, all that jazz, and this will be Lasher Luke signing off. Later, guys.